Guys, we've been doing Wheel of Time for a long time now. For us, 2 years. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of that. Crazy, right? April 21st.
It is crazy.
And we've sort of taken on a bunch of other projects that have sort of risen up between the community and... I'm waiting for Timber to stop whining. Between the just community and other people that we've worked with. And so I think we should plug some of those.
Should we just walk us down the line of Discord comments? For those of you who don't know, there's a West Coast Wheel of Time convention. It's called SpoilerCon. Go to spoilercon.org right now. I already know you're holding your phone. Just do it. It's going to take 10 seconds. Check it out. There's a whole thing for you to check out. Do it right now. Next.
With legal weed.
Oh, yes. So the West Coast Con is Jordan Con, but with legal weed. And the cops are way cooler than the Atlanta cops, so come party with us. Spoilercon.org. Go. Look. Next, Just Roll With It is a podcast that kind of arose from the Watt Spoilers community. Bunch of super cool people get together and play really fun D&D, a really fun D&D campaign, and that is a podcast. It's called Just Roll With It. Google it. And
we've done a slightly different thing with it lately. We originally started out playing these fairly long sessions, as D&D tends to go, and releasing them as, one episode per session, kind of like you and I do. And it was too much. And so both for my computer to handle that much data and, with 5 tracks and 5 hours, it ended up being a little bit more processing power than just you and me for like an hour.
That makes sense.
And, yeah. So that was something I had to discover, that the computer actually couldn't do that well. And so we've been splitting it into hour-long chunks. And I think that as I edit each chunk, I'll just be releasing it in a more serial fashion. And so you'll get, this will be session 15, part 1, 2, 3.
Instead
and those
of
will come out.
5-hour episode, there's 5 1-hour episodes.
Yeah, or more like 3 hour-and-a-half long episode type things.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and be sure it's spelled R-O-L-E, not R-O-L-L. We put a priority on the role play, not on the dice rolling.
And then someone said do a Broken Earth plug, but that's not technically a project that we're advertising yet, although it is being worked on.
Yes, Broken Earth Spoilers is a project. There are episodes being recorded, have been recorded, but it is not ready yet. So this is a teaser for the Broken Earth Spoilers project. It is coming. It is...
This year. There will be episodes.
Definitely.
Happening. And finally, if you're not aware of it, there is another Spoilers podcast. If you like the works of Brandon Sanderson and maybe discovered Brandon Sanderson because he finished The Wheel of Time, like me and Seth discovered him, or Seth might have known about him before that, and you like his stuff, we make a podcast called Mistborn Spoilers, where we break down the Mistborn series just like we break down the Watt series. And you should check that out as well. Mistborn Spoilers.
And if you are going to be at JordanCon, don't forget we will be doing multiple panels there. We'll be doing a live recording of the end of The Shadow Rising, if we get the timing right, which I think we are going to get right. And we'll be doing a panel where we sort some characters of our choice into Harry Potter houses. That'll be more fun and silly and just sort of
it's gonna be a cute,
day one, relaxing, like getting to know everybody, arguing over stupid fandoms. And the big event is on Saturday, and that's us with the White Tower podcast, Jess and Jen, and Daniel Green. And we'll be up in front of you guys and just sort of talk about content creation. It's sort of a podcast panel, and there's be lots of room for questions and interaction and stuff like that. So if you're going to be at the con, please come see us. And I should be wearing a Gleeman's cloak that is almost finished. I will be carrying juggling balls. And I have a sort of Renaissance outfit. So I should be up in costume the whole way. And if I do it right, I should also be spouting off tales of the Wheel of Time. So I hope to see you there. And I hope this comes out before the con. Now that I think about it, it's so close.
It's only like 2 weeks.
Yeah, this might be coming out
right before or something.
Right before or right after the con. So hopefully we can get this out beforehand.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick. Should I start it up, or should we annoy Aradia more?
You know... I was thinking... we could start.
All right. I guess I will commence. I'm done. Okay. Chapter 50. Traps. And our symbol is the moon and stars, the Lanfear symbol. Outside on the stone-paved path between the yellow brick house and the terraced vegetable garden, Rands stood staring down the canyon, not seeing much beyond afternoon shadows creeping across the canyon floor. If only he could trust Moraine not to hand him to the tower on a leash. He had no doubt she could do it, without using the power once, if he gave her an inch. The woman could manipulate a bull through a mouse hole without ever letting it know. He could use her. Light, I'm as bad as she is. Use the Aiel, use Moraine. If only I could trust her. He headed toward the mouth of the canyon, slanting down whenever he found a footpath leading that way. They were all narrow, paved with small stones, some of the steeper carved in steps. Hammers ringing in several smithies echoed faintly. Not all of the buildings were houses. Through one open door he saw several women working looms, and another showed a silversmith putting up her small hammers and gouges. A third, a man at a potter's wheel, his hands in the clay, and the brick kilns hot behind him. Men and boys, except the youngest, all wore Caden sore. The coat and breeches in grays and browns, but there were often subtle differences between warriors and craftsmen. A smaller belt knife, or none at all. Perhaps a Ch50, with no black veil attached. Yet watching a blacksmith heft a spear he had just given a foot-long point, Rand had no doubt the man could use the weapon as readily as make it. The paths were not crowded, but there were plenty of people about. Children laughed, running and playing, the smaller girls almost as likely to be carrying pretend spears as dolls. Ch50 carried tall clay jars of water on their heads, or weeded in the gardens, often under the direction of a child of 10 or 12. Men and women going about the tasks of their lives, not really that different from the things they might have done in Emmons Field, whether sweeping in a front door or mending a wall. The children hardly gave him a glance, for all his red coat and thick-soled boots. The Ch50 were so self-effacing it was difficult to say whether they noticed him or not. But craftsmen or fighters, men or women, the adults looked at him with an air of speculation, an edge of uncertain anticipation. Very young boys ran barefoot in robes much like those of the Ch50, but in the grayish-brown of the Caden sore, not white. The youngest girls darted about on bare feet, too, in short dresses that sometimes failed to cover their knees. One thing about the girls caught his eye. Up to perhaps 12 or so, they wore their hair in 2 braids, one over each ear, plaited with brightly colored ribbons, just the way Egwene had worn hers. It had to be a coincidence. Likely the reason she had stopped was that one of the Aiel women had told her that was how young Aiel girls wore their hair, a foolish thing to be thinking about anyway. Right now, he had one woman to deal with, Aviendha.
Manipulate a bull through a mouse hole.
Yeah, I like how Rand always gets so close on these things and then just
misses it entirely.
Get it. Yeah.
Airball.
Like, surely a coincidence. Nope.
No. No, as we went over at the time, she had her hair tied in ribbons and was told to do that because she was acting childish, and that was her punishment. Only once she stopped acting childish and proved herself was she able to take the braids out and get the approval of the Wise Ones.
And we see Rand has excused himself from the meeting of the Wise Ones and Moraine and Egwene and Aviendha because,
Yep.
And he's just kind of wandering around looking at how things work around here.
We see sort of from the peddlers, we actually get a glimpse of all of the, I call them the Forsaken candidates, because we don't know which 2 of the 4 are the Forsaken. Although I think we learn that there are 2 Forsaken here in his dream. We get the Asmodean Lanfear connection.
Right.
But I think this is sort of like, it could be Ascendra, it could be Kadir, it could be Kylie.
Or Natail.
Or Natail. I couldn't. No one thinks about Natail. He just sort of fades in the background. He does what the spider does just by being uninteresting. She like actively hides. He like just kind of stands in the corner. Yeah. He's like a wallflower.
I mean, pretty smart.
Yeah, I like this little. This is a little bit of a, like, not a murder mystery, but a sort of guessing game where you're like, I know the Forsaken are one of them, but which one? And, you know, I think Rand gets it wrong. He thinks Kadir is Asmodean because of the eyes and stuff like that.
It's a sensible conclusion because I feel like he is able to kind of pick out the evil in their eyes, and these are for people who have done really terrible stuff. And so it's kind of not surprising that Rand's like, that guy looks like, you know.
By the way, I have a theory that, again, with LT, this is a forward-looking theory with LTT and the evil that Rand sees in the eyes. And one of the reasons that LTT goes nuts and starts ranting is that Rand is aware that he sees the evil in the Dark Friend's eyes, but he doesn't know how to process that. And so his subconscious does through the madness of LTT.
I love that. So Rand is, again, wandering through the hold and just kind of observing things, and he's seeing how everything is placed and watching these craftsmen work, and he avoids the peddlers who are doing brisk business the whole time. And he comes upon a large building where two maidens are squatting beside the door, and he asks to enter because he assumes like this is the headquarters of the maidens in this region, and he wants to walk in and ask them things, and they laugh at him.
It's like that's you don't you don't go in there. That's not something. That's the maiden's whole.
I picture this one woman. She's kind of laughing into her hand as she's like, "Oh no, sure, but I'll ask my boss for you." I guess.
And she goes and sighs and says, "Come look at the dumb wetlander. He's trying to get into the women's."
And everyone comes out, seemingly.
Right. and Aviendha is like just face slappingly like, "Oh my God, Rand, you're just embarrassing me. Please stop." No.
Well, she doesn't know that he's done this yet.
Yeah, but when he tells her the story, I can just imagine her reaction, just like bright red.
And eventually, a few minutes later, it says all the maidens come out, including one much older woman who looks like she's kind of the, general, for lack of a better term.
Adelin?
There are even maidens like on the roof looking down at what's happening because they can't crowd enough into the space. They all want to get a look at them.
And they all grab like snacks and popcorn. They're like, I gotta see this. They got like little cups of tea. They're like sitting back being like, all right, let's see what's going to happen here. Yeah. Just imagine them sitting around gossiping.
So kind of the young warrior women are walking out and they're like, giving him stuff. Like they're giving him something to drink, something to eat. And then people start trying to give him gifts, or the women start trying to give him gifts. And after he had examined several offerings, Adelin, the yellow-haired Jindo woman with a thin scar on her cheek, produced a wide bracelet of ivory, heavily carved with roses. He thought it would suit Aviendha. Whoever made it had carefully shown thorns among the blossoms. So he takes this gift and he essentially says, "Oh, this is perfect. This is just like what I was looking for. Oh, can I buy this from you? I wanted to give this as a gift to Aviendha because I appreciate her teachings."
And they're like, "Oh, you want to buy?" And I assume that the bracelet is basically like a wedding ring in our culture, or like an engagement ring or something of that equivalent cultural significance. Yes. A promised gift, as Aradia calls it. And yeah, it's sort of... He doesn't really get the cultural significance of it, but when he says he wants this, they're like, "Oh, they think he means he wants to court Aviendha."
When she heard why he wanted it, or almost why, he just said it was a present for Aviendha's teachings, not a sop to soothe the women's temper so he could stand to be near her. Adelin looked around at the other maidens. They had all stopped grinning, their faces expressionless. "I will take no price for this, Rand al'Thor," she said, putting the bracelet in his hand. "Is this wrong?" he asked. "How would Aiel see it?" he thinks to himself. "I don't want to dishonor Aviendha in any way." "It will not dishonor her," Adelin says. And then they just make him go through this elaborate tea ritual where he has to take a sip of tea with everyone there.
Just be glad it's not Usquai.
So at the end, he's faking drinking and just like turning the cup because it takes like hours, it seems like. He says the sun starts setting and it's like getting dark out and he's still standing there drinking tea.
Or not drinking tea, as the case may be.
Yeah, he starts pretending because he can't drink anymore.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If he had picked something besides that bracelet, would the reaction have been the same? Or was it the particular item that he selected?
I think the type of gift is significant in that Aradia is saying it's floral like a wreath, and it does kind of look like it could be representative of that. But also that this is like a thoughtful gift that Rand is giving her. This isn't just like a payment. You know, he's not just giving her a piece of gold for thanks for all the info. He's buying a pretty thing that he feels is kind of representative of her personality. I
mean, I got to follow up with Aradia's idea. This is a bridal wreath carved in ivory. It's exactly what it is. It's flowers, and like flowers are hugely significant among Aiel. You only give flowers to someone you truly love.
And don't they have something akin to like the Victorian flower language, where specific flowers mean specific things?
Yes, in different colors and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
Is that correct? Is that this culture?
I'm pretty sure. Does anyone remember anything about this? I feel like Rand learns a little bit of it later, where like if you give a woman this type of flower, it means this thing. And if you give her a different color of the same species, it means the opposite of that or something. And only finds out later that he gave Aviendha like roses with the thorns on, which has a whole thing as well. Oh, flowers in the wreath. I think that's it. Metal Datura. The type of the flowers that are woven into the wreath all say something. So if you weave many different kinds of flowers together, and then lay this wreath at a woman's feet, you're saying something specific. So if you were to give a single flower, that may only say a single word, but whatever that word is could be significant. I had forgotten all about this. She said, it's a message of what kind of wife you would be. So it's...
Oh, that's right.
The type of flower is the expectation that the man has, and then she can either accept or reject it based on whether or not she feels that his expectations are correct or whatever, you know. So he gives her this blood red flower, or a flower that is blood red with the thorns on, and he's essentially saying, like, I expect you to be a prickly partner, but that's okay.
I mean, yeah.
Correct.
Yes, she kind of is.
Yeah, me too, Aradia. My mind was just totally blown. I never realized that the flowers on the bracelet, they do say something.
No, I'm totally like, I'm speechless. I'm literally speechless. I'm like, I never understood why that bracelet was significant. I'm so glad I asked that question.
There's a couple of direct quotes in what Metal Datura just posted, or this article on tarvalon.net. But for instance, had she used leaves or flowers from sweet root, it would have meant she claimed a sweet nature. Morning drop would mean she would be submissive, and there are too many to list. And then, of course, Winter's Heart, chapter 12. If you make a bridal wreath for me and my first sister, I will pick it up. How romantic, Aviendha. Rand gets the bracelet, goes through the elaborate tea ritual, and then... The last person that sips tea with him is an older, gray-haired maiden, who I expect is important, but we never learn her name. And then he walks back toward where he's staying.
Wait. No, okay. I was going to say, is she a Nakomi candidate?
I like it, but no, I don't think so. Because
no, I going back and reading her description, I agree. No, but
she's a maiden of the spear.
Right. Nakomi was clearly followed the way of the leaf and was one of the gen.
And Rand heads back to where he's staying in Leanne's house, and Aviendha is outside beating carpets, which is actually a punishment, although Rand doesn't realize it at the time. and just simply offers her the bracelet.
No, okay, I want to go back and read her reaction now, knowing that that's basically like a marriage proposal with an ivory bridal wreath. I really want to see how she reacts to it.
She says it to him, where once Rand, he gives her the bracelet, and Aviendha's like, I don't really like jewelry. That's not my thing. And then Rand says, but you can wear it now that you're going to be a wise one. Like, you don't have to worry about jewelry getting caught while you're fighting for your life or whatever.
Making noise.
Yes, she says. She turned the ivory circle over as if unsure what to do with it, then abruptly thrust her hand through it and held her wrist up to stare at it. She could have been looking at a manacle. If you do not like it, Aviendha, Adelin said it would not touch your honor. She even seemed to approve. He mentioned the tea-sipping ceremony, and she squeezed her eyes shut and shuddered. What's wrong? They think you're trying to attract my interest. He would not have believed her voice could be so flat. Her eyes held no emotion at all. They have approved of you, as if I still carried the spear. Light. Simple enough to set them straight. I don't... He cut off as her eyes blazed up. No, you accepted their approval, and now you would reject it? That would dishonor me. God, this is complicated. Do you think you are the first man to try to catch my eye? Important.
Right.
They must think as they think now. It means nothing. So she's saying, like, essentially, you just did this ceremony, you can't undo it. And she was like, it's fine that you have given me this gift and everyone thinks that you're trying to catch my interest. You're not gonna. So thanks for the gift. Go away.
She's also seeing fate push her towards the visions that she had in the rings.
Ooh, yeah, she sees the figurative noose tightening around her neck.
Exactly. It's literally, that's why it's a manacle, because she's literally, it's chaining her to her fate.
It's literally a manacle to her.
Yeah.
I never saw it that way until you pointed it out. That's awesome.
Her fate of falling in love with Rand al'Thor and violating her toe.
Grimacing, she gripped the woven carpet beater in both hands. Go away. With a glance at the bracelet, she added, You truly know nothing, do you? You know nothing. It's not your fault. She seemed to be repeating something she had been told, or trying to convince herself. And then she says, I'm sorry if I ruined your meal, Rand al'Thor. Now please go. Amis says I must clean all of these rugs and carpets no matter how long it takes, and it will take all night if you stand here talking. And so Rand leaves, wisely.
Yeah. He's not going to make that better. There's no improving that situation.
Guess that's what happens when you do something nice for an Aiel woman. He has no idea what's going on.
Can I just say how happy I am that all you folks are here to help me demystify all the Aiel culture stuff that's going on in the background? Because it is deep and complicated. And I know I've got a lot of it, but I'm definitely missing some stuff.
Oh, I'm sure.
You truly know nothing, do you? You know nothing, Jon Snow.
You know nothing, Rand al'Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This basically says it right fucking there.
Yep.
So we get to do another redhead saying, you know nothing. I really hope they drop that line. That would be so great if, like, in this scene, in the show, Rand gives her the bracelet, and she says, you know nothing, Rand al'Thor.
Yeah, that would actually be
perfect. I want that badly. I think it's a great nod, because, I mean, these books definitely nod to each other. There's no doubt that Jordan nods to Martin and Martin nodded back.
Oh, when I read Game of Thrones and the red-haired love interest says, you know nothing, Jon Snow, I was like, that was a head nod. Like, I yes.
And, you know, the whole circular nature of Martin gives Jordan credit for basically getting him published because he did, and popular because he gave the little blurb on the front page. And in a lot of ways, Jordan is going to get on TV because Martin trailblazed it. And so there's this interesting cycle of, like, Wheel of Time is getting on TV because the Wheel of Time inspired Game of Thrones, which got on TV. Yeah, Ygritte.
So Rand goes back to Leon's house, and Amis is there and says, I'll have some guy Shane bring you to your sleeping area, basically. And then, but Rand says, Amis, did you tell Aviendha to apologize to me for dinner? And no, did she? Her blue eyes looked thoughtful for a moment. He thought Bear almost smiled. I love that.
Almost.
And basically says, no, like, we don't do that. I would never have ordered her to apologize to you, because then that would be a fake apology. It would essentially be commanding her to lie. And I would never do that.
However, the beatings will continue until morale improves. That's beating the carpet. Beating the carpet.
And they kind of talk amongst themselves, like, yeah, that girl has to learn how to control her anger, this and that. But I got the feeling in that scene that the wise ones are kind of looking at each other like, oh, she's already, like, the walls are already breaking down.
Yeah.
She likes him. She doesn't want to admit it. And yeah, she has a bad temper and whatever, but she's still a young girl. And
I like how it's working. But while they're saying, like, yeah, I guess you got us. We didn't think she'd be so, talk to you so rough. I guess, yeah. You spotted us. And he's, like, walking away all, like, thinking he's the shit. Like, yeah, I know what they're doing. I got them. I got their spy under my thumb. Meanwhile, they're like, yeah, it's working.
You must know that I know, Rand is saying, about her, that you set her to spy on me. You do not know as much as you think, Amis said, for all the world like an Aes Sedai with hidden meetings she did not intend to let him see. Melaine shifted her shawl, eyeing him up and down in a considering manner. He knew a little about Aes Sedai. If she were Aes Sedai, she would be Green Aja. I admit, she said, that at first we thought you would not see beyond a pretty young woman, and you are handsome enough that she should have found your company more amusing than ours. We did not reckon with her tongue, or other things. Then why are you so eager for her to stay with me? There was more heat in his voice than he wanted. You can't think I will reveal anything to her now that I don't want you to know. Why do you allow her to remain? Amis asked calmly. If you refuse to accept her, how could we force her on you? At least this way I know who the spy is. Having Aviendha under his eye had to be better than wondering which of the Aiel were watching him. Without her, he would probably suspect that every casual comment from Ruark was an attempt to pry. Of course, there was no way to say it was not. Ruark was married to one of these women. Suddenly, he was glad he had not confided more in the clan chief, and sad that he had the thought of it. Why had he ever believed the Aiel would be simpler than Terran High Lords? I'm satisfied to leave her right where she is. Then we are all satisfied, Bear said. He eyed the leathery-faced woman leerily. There had been a note of something in her voice, as if she knew more than he did. She will not find out what you want. What we want? Melaine snapped. Her long hair swung as she tossed her head. The prophecy says, a remnant of a remnant shall be saved. And what we want, Rand al'Thor, Kara Karn, is to have as many of her people as we can, is to save as many of our people as we can. Sorry. Whatever your blood and your face, you have no feeling for us. I will make you know our blood for yours. If I have to lay I think, Amis cut her off smoothly, that he would like to see his sleeping room now. He looks tired. She clapped her hands sharply, and a willowy Gaishane woman appeared. Show this man to the room that has been prepared for him. Bring him whatever he needs. Leaving him standing there, the wise ones headed for the door. Bear and Sienna looking daggers at Melaine, like members of the women's circle eyeing someone they meant to call to account sharply. Melaine ignored them. As the door closed behind them, she was muttering something that sounded like, talk sense into that fool girl.
You can't say the quiet part out loud. It ruins the whole plan if they know that's what you're doing. God.
Yes. Yeah, but Melaine gets angry because of how profoundly he has misunderstood the situation. And that he seems to think that he's special or has some kind of a special authority. She even calls him Kara Karn mockingly, like in the middle of her little outburst.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't care who you are.
So when they say they're going to talk sense into that girl, who are they talking about? Who is that girl?
I think it's about Aviendha. I'm not sure exactly what she means. That I think it was Bear in the beginning, maybe even before. Yeah, definitely before what I read says, no, we didn't tell her to apologize to you. We did set her to beat those rugs because she obviously has too much anger stored up. So we thought, well, if you're going to stomp around angry all the time, why don't you spend some of that anger on getting the dirt out of these carpets?
Right.
And that's their fairly sensible punishment. It's not awful.
And that does help her see that it's not his fault. It's just the pattern has
Yeah.
forced her into the situation. It's not something that he's doing to her. It's just the situation.
And I think that this group of wise ones are very upset with Aviendha because they ignorant to how she's been treating Rand, and that is, you don't have to love him, you don't have to go to bed with him. They've already said this to her. That,
Yeah.
Like, we don't expect you to do any of that. What we want is to give him basically an Aiel friend that he'll be likely to enjoy the company of, so that he can learn about our culture and care when it's important. When the time comes, he can destroy us. We want him to like us. We want him to get us.
We'd like Massima's people to be on the front lines, not the Aiel people, please. Let's have them take the brunt of the deaths.
Yeah. Now, if you manage to win his heart and take him to bed, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
that's even better. That's what we're trying to do.
And I think that's the talking sense into her, being like, listen, we get you might not like him, but come on, like
he's not that bad, and just spend time with him.
Do it for your people. I mean, it's a little, now that I think about it, it's a little creepy to be pimping out Aviendha in that way. But even though they told her she doesn't have to do anything, it is kind of like a bunch of busybody old ants kind of forcing them together and being like, go on a date, you'll have fun.
Spend some time together. I bet you'll learn to like each other. And maybe more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, about as close to an arranged marriage as you can get without either of them realizing it.
Yes, and I think that's their ideal, but they don't, they're not going to force the matter. There's a kind of baseline, which is, I just rambled on about it, but...
I love his thought process where he's trying to figure out like what she would lay. And we talked about it being like a bridal wreath, right? And we figured out that she's going to just take Aviendha's...
I'll lay the bridal wreath myself.
Exactly. Yeah. So and I don't think she's saying I will marry him. She's saying she wants Aviendha to marry him.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's saying she'd lay the bridal wreath for Aviendha herself, not for herself, if that makes sense.
Yes, totally. Yeah, that's what I thought. I will make you know our blood for yours if I have to lay the... I think Amos cut her off smoothly.
Oh, his mental, yeah. Do hens lay eggs? I just thought that was great. He was like, he's so confused. He's just like, I don't understand anything. What the hell? Yeah.
And I don't think Rand has even been introduced to that minutia of Aiel culture. I don't think he knows.
I think it got mentioned once before. There's a reason why we're like laying the bridal wreath is something that we've talked about a couple of times. I think it was one of those times when he like wasn't really paying attention.
Oh well, maybe, yeah, probably even.
Or it might be the fact that like Aviendha never talks about marriage because she doesn't want to bring it up for some reason. I can't imagine. Because she doesn't want to bring up marriage around him. Because it's like when you don't look at something, you like look everywhere else but the one thing you like really want to look at. And she's like, we'll talk about everything except marriage, because that's the one thing she doesn't really want to look at.
Yeah, and I think now that we've gone over this so well, I feel like Aviendha's maybe even more upset in that scene because she realizes this was a good gift. Like it followed all the rules very well. And it suits her.
Yeah, out of ignorance. Taviran. Okay, now the next thing we have to figure out is what the snowflake necklace from Egwene means to her. Other than friendship. I think it's just friendship. But Peoples says it's that they want to bang. I don't think so, but keep hoping. Keep hoping. I know I certainly do. Snowflake is interesting. A frozen water has to be significant to the Aiel.
I remember the snowflake bracelet.
Yeah. That was a necklace, actually.
Necklace? Well,
yeah.
That was a gift that Egwene gave to Aviendha?
Yep. No, and then there's a whole plot, there's a whole thing where, like, Rand, every time he sees Aviendha, is like, who gave her that? Because the only two things she's wearing is the necklace and the bracelet.
Mm.
And he's totally like, oh, sweet, she's wearing my bracelet. And then he's like, oh, she's wearing that necklace. Some other suitor out there? And it's like Egwene the whole time. But, of course, they never talk to each other, so they wouldn't know.
I liked this scene where Rand's like, get me a bath. And they're like, and he's like, just get me a damn bath. So tired of living in this foreign world. And then the guy Shane gets the bath, and then she's like, you want me to wash you, right? And he's like, no, get out of here. No, this crazy place.
Oh, and that's the guy Shane that gets soul sucked later.
Yes, I think so.
No, Kion.
I thought it was Cheon, but it could
Cheon,
be
I think is correct.
Cheon. Next thing I have is the dream
I like
sequence.
Aradia's revelation. The snowflakes represent the snowfall when Aviendha opened the gateway and they fled into Shanchan lands and banged in the snow hut. So the snowflakes represent banging in the igloo.
What? I think you're taking this a little far, guys. If Aviendha had banged Egwene in the snow hut, absolutely. I mean, I would have to be like, well, this is obviously a foreshadowing, but that's not what happened.
Whatever. Game of Thrones had boat sex. We have igloo sex. You know it's coming. There's going to be a scene in the show. We're waiting for it. We're already anticipating it. Just wait for the memes. Wait for them. Because you know once the show starts and Aviendha gets introduced. Anyone who says, like, oh my, there's no naked... Like, okay, first of all, we're about to go into a dream with 4 of our main characters buck naked. So let's just say there's plenty of nudity in this, especially from now on. Like,
there's
I feel like it was
a lot of naked
little
people in this dream.
It was a little restricted in the first 3 books, but now Jordan is just like hog wild. Like, girl, like I think he started off with the trip to Iridian, right? Like, take your clothes off and go for a run. And, you know, like, there's just a lot of nudity in these books from here on out. Every ceremony. Take them off. That's true. The guy's clothes are often hidden from them. I think we talked about that one time where
they're always getting stolen.
Like, yeah, and like Aviendha was sitting on Rand's clothes the one time, and like this thing, they like try and keep them in bed by like stealing their clothes. So yeah, that's gonna lead to a lot of male butt shots. So,
but like only because it works, you know.
There's gonna be a lot of boobs and butts in this show. If they want to go that way, they can definitely go that way if the casting's good enough. And lots of baths. Everybody's in a bath. Everybody's naked in a bath.
But, you know, I mean, how interesting would it also be, like, when there's Aiel running through the night, murdering Trollocs and slitting throats, butt naked?
Just covered in Trolloc blood?
Yeah. Like, that's so badass, too. Like, go ahead, let them be naked. I don't know. I feel like it's...
No, yeah. As long as it's done as part of the culture and the thing. As long as it's... I don't want it to feel too gratuitous.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But at the same time, like... I like boobs and butts, so, you know, go ahead and put them in there.
Pretty much everyone does, as it turns out. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. That's the reason why we say boobs and butts is because it should be, like, equivalent nakedness. This show is about balance, and I think Rafe has proved that he's aware of that.
So, the dream sequence.
Yeah, let's go right to that.
I didn't mark anything to read for the dream sequence.
No, I mean, I think we can talk about it. Certainly, in general circumstances, he's cold and wet in the water because he's in the desert and craving some cold, wet water.
Oh, right.
And that's sort of, and I think they're in his dream, as far as I can tell. It's not like someone else's dream that he's sucked into. I don't think it's Teleron Riyadh.
Well, there's a point where it switches.
There is a point where it switches, yes.
Rand falls asleep and makes a legitimate dream where 3 of his love interests, or 2 are naked and 1 standing around looking at him judgingly. That seems like a pretty normal dream. You know?
Yeah, right. No, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never had a dream like that.
And then it switches, and Lanfear shows up in the dream. So I think that she maintains his dream, and even when he later tries to break out of it, she tries to go back to regular, she holds him. Like everything starts to get blurry for a second, and then she snaps him back into the dream. They're having a will battle for a moment, but Rand doesn't actually know what's going on. Yeah, I don't know. This is weird. So Rand has like that seemingly kind of normal dream where two of his love interests are swimming naked in a pond, or join him while he's swimming naked in a pond. And then Aviendha is standing at the edge.
And then basically you have Lanfear sort of giggling at him, being like, that's your dream? You have like the silly, you silly boy. She appears using Teleron Riyadh. She just like pops into existence in the water next to him.
She appears.
Yeah.
Lanfear appears also, and then she's butt naked, but doesn't care at all. And just gets really rapey until Asmodean shows up. It's a pretty weird, uncomfortable scene.
I mean, I don't know about you, but controlling my existence, biting my neck unwelcomely, and forcing me to...
Some people are into that, but you have to have a conversation first where everyone consents.
Not be in my right mind? Yeah. It's not... That feels a little non-consensual.
Then you can do that. Yes.
Yeah. So in the middle of that boundary-breaking encounter, this voice pops in.
Rand is like literally at points like she's like naked and on him and like fully wrapping her arms and legs around him, and he's like, I feel uncomfortable, and she's just like saying weird shit like, you cannot escape me, literally. And it's like, Jesus, woman, like nobody likes that. I ought to mark you, she said, and then she bites his neck.
And I'd like to make a point that the three girls in his dreams are not actually Min, Aviendha, and Elaine. It's just dream. He's just in a normal dream where he's dreaming dream versions of those girls.
Yes. So the only people that are actually in the dream at the end are Rand, Lanfear, and Asmodean.
Yes.
Lanfear is like, she just bit him and he pushes her off of him, and then Asmodean shows up, but he's like a gray, misty cloud walking through Teleron Riyadh. Concealed his appearance.
He's masking his appearances, yeah.
And I'm just kind of moving through this. Stop me if you have anything to say about this stuff. But
no, the only thing I'd say is I think that tonight basically is, Couladin has gotten his tattoos, so he is heading out to the Golden Bowl, and in order to stall Rand and Jindo, Asmodean is summoning the Drakkar, basically, to attack them and delay them and give cover for Couladin to leave without being seen and give him a head start. And so that's what, when he refers to our plans, that's sort of what he's talking about, is like this plan to... Oh, why aren't you there? Why are you in this boy's dream right now? Basically, why aren't you like off helping me do this thing? Why are you just fucking around with your boy toy? Yeah. I didn't even catch that. I didn't know what they were talking about. That's the best I could come up with, is that they I mean, obviously they have a plan that they're working on, and it's not the plan to get, Asmodean captured. Right, that's Lanfear's other plan, but like the plan they have has to do with the dragons on Couladin's arm, and he's taken off right now, right after the battle, or during the battle. See, I didn't even pick up on that, but yeah, when Asmodean shows up, that's right as the battle begins, essentially. Because when Rand wakes up, first he flips out because he feels evil, and then he sees someone in his room kind of like in a dark corner when he wakes up. And it turns out to be Aviendha, but he almost kills her because, don't lurk in the shadows. Jesus. Wait outside, you weirdo. God, it's like, I'm just going to creep in on this tweaker with a rifle and sit in the corner and wake up. I'm sure that'll be fine. Like... And yeah, Rand is almost tweaker level paranoid at this point. Right, and his rifle is a way bigger gun than a rifle. Right. Can knock down mountains if he wants to. Mm-hmm. But Aviendha does explain briefly that essentially this is why she ends up accidentally letting it slip that the Wise Ones have been monitoring his dreams, because they didn't tonight. The Wise Ones weren't monitoring his dreams because they were afraid to. They knew that something was happening, and so they backed off of his dreams and they set guards on him. And the Wise Ones have been taking turns while he sleeps, guarding him. And then they send Aviendha eventually. The puppet that he talks about, the pulling strings on a puppet, I assume that's Couladin? Yeah. Which makes me wonder, is Couladin under compulsion? And that would, I mean, he's certainly being manipulated. I have always assumed that when he says pulling strings on a puppet, he's just talking about manipulating Couladin. But, he's been over there for a long time putting those dragons on. Maybe longer than he needed just to get the dragons on. Maybe he was actually doing a brainwash.
It may be. My first impression was that essentially Lanfear, well, I think, and I can't prove it, but I think that Lanfear entered Teleran Riyadh in the flesh in this case. So she's disappeared, left Asmodean behind, and although they have this plan to prop up Couladin as a fake Karakarn, Lanfear's disappeared, and Asmodean goes and finds her and realizes that she's fooling around with some pretty boy, and he's like, "Yo, what the fuck, dude? Like, you're just gonna leave me to babysit this idiot over here alone? Like, this is our plan, not yours, or not mine. Like, you should be helping me execute it, not making out right now."
And I think Asmodean's actually really terrible at compulsion. I think if I remember that correctly, like, that's not a tool he uses. So I'm guessing that they 1-2'd Couladin. Lanfear did the compulsion part while Asmodean did the dragons.
I buy it. And I even kind of want to say that RJ even gives us a little hint that Asmodean seems to be good at visual deception, because he does that in this chapter where he conceals his identity.
He's an artist, right? That's his whole identity, is he's an artist. So, I mean, it's music, tattoos,
fake a good tattoo,
right? So, yeah, I love the one too, that he's faking the illusion and she's doing the compulsion, and that's why their plan works, or that's sort of the fake plan to create this distraction for Rand and sow chaos. But of course, Lanfear always has there's always another secret, and her sort of backup plan was to basically incapacitate Asmodean, and we'll see that in a bit, and basically provide a teacher to Rand.
You're definitely right. Couladin never goes to Ruidian.
Yeah.
He's hasn't had the visions.
Yeah, he wouldn't know.
Neither has Savannah.
Nope. Basically, the idea they're saying is that, Couladin's out there, and he's not lying about going through the doorway. He was actually sent through an, in quotes, alternate doorway that Asmodean created for him. And so he had this whole vision quest and did the thing that he thought, or not doorway, but columns. So he thinks he went through the columns, but he never actually did.
Oh, so even Couladin believes that he did it.
Yeah.
And he is the Karakarn.
Yeah.
Well.
So he truly believes he is the Karakarn. So that's also a possibility, but on one level, I'm like, the Forsaken never put in that much effort. They just compel him. Like, why recreate everything when you can just, like, fry his brain? Like, I don't, and Lanfear is real good at that. So either way, he's either being, he thinks he's the Karakarn, whether that's brain fried or manipulation. But I'm going to go with compulsion, because, like,
one or the other.
I'm not a puppet, you're the puppet. Okay, Couladin.
That's a direct quote from the President of the United States of America. It is.
I know. I was making a reference, Patrick.
It's so. What it is what it is. Moving forward.
Can we give Asmodean a Russian accent from now on?
I can't do a Russian accent, or I would go back and reread his line. I can't do any accents. I'm awful at it.
Yes, hello. My name is Vladimir Asmodean. I got a Trump Tower in Ruidian, or Couladin Tower in Ruidian. The Shido Tower. There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
I mean, Elida even does that.
Well, yeah, well.
The White Tower isn't good enough. I want my own tower. Come on.
Slap my name on it. It's not even that tall. It's like barely even taller than the freaking White Tower.
So Rand wakes up, feels the evil, freaks out when he sees someone lurking in the corner, and it's really lucky that he, like, blows up all the lamps in a flash of light to see what's going on. And sees that it's Aviendha, but he still senses the evil, and it's like getting stronger. Pulls out the fire sword, goes stalking out into his room, and finds that a Gaishain attendant is being having her soul sucked out of her face by a
Drakkar.
Drakkar. Yes, I lost the word for a second.
A Dracula equivalent, a vampire of the soul, a demon beast that can fly and sing you into a trance. Drakkar.
Yes. Rand cuts it in half laterally, not horizontally, up and down.
Like peeling a banana.
And then he stalks up to the front doorway, essentially, and sees another Drakkar, this one killing one of the Wise One Dreamwalkers, Sayana.
Yeah, this is one of the original 4, and this is as long as she lasts. I think we talked about her when we were introduced.
Yeah.
And this is why there are only 3 Dreamwalkers among the Wise Women from now on.
And they're all dead. They got to them all too late.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, it's almost better to be dead than just soul-sucked.
Aviendha says that.
Yeah.
It's
I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Better that they had died all the way than be halfway in between, like alive but without a mind.
You know what it reminds me of is what happens to folks who get hit by the Black Wind.
Yeah, just like that. Their soul's gone, but their body's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just kind of empty vessels. It's very sad.
And I'd like to point out that Rand sensing the evil, I think, is because he's a channeler, and he's got sort of the channeler's ability to sense shadow spawn.
Yes, but he doesn't know what that is yet.
But yeah, he doesn't get it quite yet.
He just knows that it's happening and tries to react to it.
But it's not the warder sense of shadow spawn, because he doesn't get that. He hasn't been bonded yet by Alana.
Now, is that the same? Is that...
That's a good question,
like
because they do say they
through the bonds.
Yeah, they say they both have the ability. It's definitely the channeler sense, but a warder certainly has that ability as well, even when he's not with his channeler. So somehow the bond transfers that. Aradia says it's being touched by the one power, and warders, because they're bonded, that would make sense that if the thread of the warder is bonded to the thread of the Aes Sedai, which is touched by the one power, then the warder is also touched by the one power. I like that.
Oh, she just said that's just my headcanon. But Aradia, I feel like that's correct. I think that is what it was.
If the 3 of us agree, I think we can pretty much say that that's a consensus.
Yeah, that's a good way to sum that up.
Me, Patrick, 5 other people, or Aradia. That's pretty much our qualification for verification.
After Rand sends Aviendha running to wake up as many people as she can.
Up spears!
Rand stepped outside warily, sword ready, the power filling him, thrilling him, sickening him. He wanted to laugh and to vomit. The night was freezing, but he was barely aware of the cold. The burning drag car was sprawled in the terrace garden, stinking of burning meat, adding the light of its low fire to the moon. A little way down the path Sayana lay, long graying hair spread in a fan, staring at the sky with wide, unblinking eyes. Her belt knife lay beside her, but she had no chance against a drag car. Or Drakkar, I think is the right way to say it.
Yes.
Even as Rand snatched the leather-padded mallet hanging beside the square bronze gong, pandemonium erupted from the canyon mouth. Human shouts and Trolloc howls, the clash of steel, screams. He sounded the gong hard, a sonorous toll that echoed down the canyon. Almost immediately another gong sounded, then more. From dozens of mouths the cry, "Up spears!" Confused yells rose around the peddlers' wagons below. Rectangles of light appeared, doors flung opened, on the 2 box-like wagons, gleaming white in the moonlight. Someone was shouting angrily down there. A woman. He could not tell who. Wings beat in the air above him. Snarling, Rand raised the fiery sword. The one power burned in him, and fire roared from the blade. The stooping drag car exploded in a rain of burning chunks that fell into the darkness below. "Here," Ruark said. The clan chief's eyes were hard above his black veil. Fully dressed, he carried buckler and spears. Matt stood behind him, coatless and bareheaded, shirt half tucked in, blinking uncertainly and gripping his black-hafted spear with both hands. Rand took the Ch50 from Ruark, then let it drop. A batwing-shaped wheel wheeled across the moon, then swooped low on the far side of the canyon, vanishing in the shadows. They hunt for me. Let them see my face. The power surged in him. The sword in his hand flared till it seemed a small sun illumined him. Should I do it? I'm not going to do it.
Come on, say it. Say the line, Bart. Say the line.
The power surged in him. The sword in his hand flared until it seemed a small sun illumined him. They can't find me if they do not know where I am. Laughing, because they could not see the joke, he ran toward the sound of battle.
So if an Aiel is showered with the bloody remains of a Drakkar while in the middle of a battle chant, does that count as singing in the rain?
Yeah, in the bloody flaming meat rain.
Meat rain. Meat rain, meat rain.
I don't have much over the next couple of pages. I think I mostly have readout.
Yeah, I just want to make a small point about the end of that. I think there may be a little bit of insanity coming through at this point.
Oh gosh, yeah, I meant to say that, but we start seeing like grinning in the face of imminent death Rand. Like
right. Especially when he's channeling. It's like it's worse when he's channeling, but
yeah,
it's like starting to build up and become...
Aradia said, yeah, what is it the joke that everybody... What is the joke Rand's referring to that nobody got? There is no joke. There is nothing funny about this situation. Not covering your face when people are hunting you isn't a joke. There's no punchline. There's nothing funny about it.
I mean, I think basically what he's saying is like...
How will they be able to find me if I don't show them my face?
And if they don't find me, they're going to find and kill the people I love and care about. And I think that's the humor is like,
yeah,
I want them to see my face because I want them to come after me, not the people around me. But yeah, I think that's his little joke, and that's not funny. So it's not funny at all. And there's just little things like that where he's like laughing at inappropriate times, and like if you're inside his head, it kind of makes sense. But again, if you take an outside perspective and step away, 2 people died. He just destroyed some Drakkar, and he runs away giggling.
Yeah,
it's a little nuts.
Ruark and Matt are just standing there, looking at each other like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Yeah. So do we get a small switch to Matt for the end of the
for a bit.
Yeah.
All I really had highlighted here was, "You dance your spear well, gambler. Strange days when Trollocs come to Cold Rocks." She glanced at the shadowy shape that he thought was Moraine. "They might have forced a way in without the eye," said I. "There weren't enough for that," he said without thinking. "They were meant to pull attention here. So those Drakkar would have a free hand to reach Rand? I think you are right," she said slowly. "Are you a battle leader among the Wetlanders?" He wished he had kept his mouth shut. That's all I really had.
Yeah, he just sees deeply because of his visions. He's starting to really get good at battles and analysis and planning and stuff like that. So, and of course, his true statement of, "I read a book once."
Yeah, she says. Yeah, he says, no, I just, I read a book once.
And I'm guessing that's all he ever read. He
I think
gave one book a chance once. Yeah. We noticed that Kylie and Kadir are both missing. Kylie because she's in the dream with Rand. I don't know where Kadir is. I think that's a bit of a red herring then.
And now a lot of Matt's perspective is Matt watching Rand and kind of what's happening around him. Although he's like fighting as this is happening after the Trollocs are dead. From Matt's perspective, we watch, like, for instance, a conversation between Rand and Moraine. And Rand holding his sword made of fire that is... He's like pumping so much power into that there's this huge circle of light around him and everyone near him, which I thought was just kind of a cool scene.
Yeah, lighting it up to be the brightness of a sun and using it to light the night.
Yeah, anyone near him can see, even though it's dark.
It also helps by blinding the Trollocs because they don't do well in the transition from dark to light.
Oh, that's true too. I don't know what to say about this conversation between Rand and Moraine. Moraine saying Maidens grow more dangerous. There was attack on an Imri stand that could have been aimed at the Aiel. It's not likely, but it could have been. But tonight, those drag car were definitely coming for you. And Rand's yeah, no.
And I think they were. And as far as I can tell, based on research, they are Asmodean's Drakkar. That's the only little bit I was able to find. And I think they were definitely coming after Rand, but they were really not only a distraction. The Trollocs are a distraction from the Drakkar, but the Drakkar, I think, are a distraction from Couladin.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is a distraction from Couladin leaving.
And then the conversation between him and Moraine, I think, is a bit of foreshadowing for when she finally does stop trying to manipulate him and actually comes to a point where he can trust her right before she takes out Lanfear through the gateway.
Yeah.
And so that's something she really does have to realize is she cannot manipulate him. He is the dragon reborn. He needs to do what he can do. She can support him, but the manipulation is not helpful.
The secrecy, the, refusing to tell him all these different parts of her plan that he's the kind of keystone of is a great way to create suspicion. It's not surprising that their relationship goes terribly wrong.
They'll make it back. I'd love to see a Rand Moraine reunite after the last battle. I think that would be fantastic. Especially as them both much older and wiser.
Yeah, and, having finished the thing.
Right.
Not so stressful anymore that it's over.
Hey, guess what? Our relationship, have the fate of the universe depend on it. So maybe we can relax a little bit. maybe. And maybe now I can forget about that threat of killing me if I turn to the shadow. That would be nice. If that's something I didn't have to worry about anymore. That's, God, that was such a revelation back when we sort of identified that in the Eye of the World. When it was like, no wonder they don't trust her. She threatened to kill them, straight up, for just, and they were ignorant enough to just think having Ishmael in their dreams would be enough corruption for her to decide they'd turned and just kill them. So the reason they kept the dreams quiet is they were really afraid that, if they told her about the dream, she'd be like, oh, well, so much for you, crack. Lan, do your thing. That's, and that would have been the end of them, because at that point they had no way to defend themselves.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, we did a lot of first scenes with these characters. It's going to be sad when we do last scenes with a bunch of characters.
Ooh. We haven't really lost anyone very important yet.
No, just 1 scene, 2 scene characters have popped up. But there's going to be times when we're I'll be looking so what happens with this character? And some of them, the secondary characters don't necessarily, we don't find out what happens to them. We kind of make assumptions.
Yeah.
And so there's a final scene where they appear and then that's it.
Well,
anyway.
We'll point it out as we get to them.
And then there's a bunch of deaths, but there's that.
Well, and I mean, for instance, pretty soon Moraine appears to die, but we know that she's not actually dead. But she does disappear for most of the series.
Yeah, I mean, I
or a lot of
that
it, I should say.
Her primary death. She sort of pulls a Gandalf the Grey and turns into Moraine the White.
Comes back
basically.
Better. Yeah.
But after all the action's already taken place and isn't really helpful after she comes back.
Yeah.
Oh, I never thought of Sean Bean as the Green Man. That would be a good one. Or Ingtar. But I feel like he wouldn't be recognizable as Sameshta. You should really have him play Ingtar. Ingtar is such a better match for Sean Bean.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could have anyone play Sameshta. It's a 15-foot tall tree man, or taller than that. It's like a 25-foot tall tree man.
He'll be all CGI, so you could have him totally do Green Man, kill him off, and then have Ingtar show up. Be like, oh yeah.
I mean, someone has to do the voice. 25-foot tall Sean Bean. Okay.
The one thing I wanted to bring up is that this is where he gets the guard of, because they're afraid of Gray Man now that they've fought off Drakkar. And they're like, well, I just want to surround you with warriors because we can't see Gray Men, but if we put people physically around you at all times, they're going to bump into them. And that's about the only way we know how to fight Gray Men. So guess what? We're going to put people around you. And for some reason, we no idea why, the Maidens volunteered. So they'll be doing it. And it's And they just went through the tea ceremony, and they think he's courting Aviendha, and they approve, and they are basically picking up Aviendha's honor.
And they know that Rand is the son of a maiden. Although they don't know which one or who, they know that he is. And
they know which one.
They do?
Because, like, the wise ones say, I know your mother, and stuff like that. Like,
but I mean the maidens.
I feel like that information got around. Because the whole thing is he's the only one they know about that came back. And they, like, obviously most of them are too young to have actually met his mother, but I feel like they know who she is. I don't think that's a secret.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Well, in any case, they know he's the son of a maiden, and no one has ever known who the son of a maiden was before. So, before this, at least. So, that's part of their fascination comes from that. And that comes up a little later. They're like, we kind of feel responsible for you because it's almost like you're one of ours, even though you're a man.
But I think the reason they're volunteering now is because of Aviendha.
I like that.
I mean, we're 2 pages after the tea ceremony where they, like, accepted him as one of their own and gave him the bracelet and approved of his pursual of Aviendha as though she was one of their own.
So, what's her name again? Like Eldine, or the maiden that makes him bad food and
treats him like a son.
Yeah, I can't remember what her name is. It doesn't matter. But I can totally see her being like, "Oh yeah, him. I like him. I'll set a guard to watch him for." Yeah, I like that young man.
It's also a little bit of like, okay, royal couple.
A little bit, yeah. Ruark stepped into the light, black veil hanging loose. The Trollocs were only a diversion for the drag car. Rand al'Thor, too few to be else. Drakkar meant for you, I think. Leafblighter does not want you to live. The danger grows, Moraine said quietly. The clan chief glanced at her before going on. Moraine Sedai is right. Since the Drakkar failed, I fear we can expect the Soulless next, what you call Greymen. I want to put spears around you at all times. For some reason, the Maidens have volunteered for this task. The cold was getting to Aviendha. Shoulders hunched, she had her hands shoved into her armpits as far as they would go. If they wish it, Rand said. He sounded a touch uncomfortable under all that ice. Matt did not blame him. He would not have put himself in the Maidens' hands again for all the silk on sea folk ships. They will watch better than anyone else, Ruark said, having asked for the task. I do not mean to leave it to them alone, however. I will have everyone on guard. I believe it will be the Soulless next time, but that does not mean it cannot be something else. 10,000 Trollocs instead of a few hundred? What about the Shaido? Matt wished he had not cracked his teeth when they all looked at him. Maybe they had not even realized he was there until then. Still, he might as well say it. I know you don't like them, but if you think there's really any chance of a bigger attack, wouldn't it be better to have them in here than outside? Ruark grunted. From him, that equaled a curse from most men. I would not bring near 1,000 Shaido inside cold rocks if Grassburner were coming. I could not, in any case. Couladin and the Shaido folded their tents at nightfall. We are well rid of them. I sent runners to make sure they leave the Tardad land without taking any goats or sheep with them. That sword vanished from Rand's hand. The abrupt absence of its light was like blindness. Matt squeezed his eyes shut to help them adapt, but when he opened them again, the moonlight still seemed dark. Which way did they go? Rand asked. North, Ruark told him. No doubt Couladin means to meet Savannah on her way to Alcair Dal, to influence her against you. He may succeed. The only reason she laid her bridal wreath at Suladric's feet instead of his was that she meant to wed a clan chief. But I told you to expect trouble from her. Savannah delights in causing trouble. It should not matter. If the Shaido will not follow you, they are small loss. I mean to go to Alcair Dal, Rand said firmly. Now. I will apologize to any clan chief who feels dishonored by coming late, but I'll not let Couladin be there any longer before me than I can manage. He won't stop at turning Savannah against me, Ruark. I cannot afford to hand him a month for it. After a moment, Ruark said, Perhaps you are right. You bring change, Rand al'Thor. At sunrise, then. I will choose out 10 red shields for my honor, and the Maidens will provide yours. I mean to be leaving when first light hits the sky, Ruark, with every hand that can carry a spear or draw a bow. There are no customs to cover me, Ruark. You could have cracked rocks with Rand's voice, or put a skim of ice on wine. I have to make new customs. He laughed roughly. Aviendha looked shocked, and even Ruark blinked, taken aback. Only Moraine was unaffected, with those considering eyes. Someone had best let the peddlers know, Rand continued. They won't want to miss the fair. But if they don't stop those fellows drinking, they will be too drunk to handle reins. What of you, Matt? Are you coming? He certainly did not intend to let the peddlers get away from him. Not his way out of the waste. Oh, I'm right behind you, Rand. The worst of it was, it felt right saying that. Bloody Taveran tugging at me. How had Perrin pulled free? Light, I wish I was with him right now. I guess I am. Shouldering his spear, he strode off up the canyon. There was still time to get little sleep, at least. Behind him, he could hear Rand chuckling.
More.
Ain't nothing funny about that,
More
crazy
crazy
man.
laughter. That's not helping your cause. It's yeah. That's definitely something I've been thinking about as well. I saw Jess's setup, and she's got a Mac Mini connected to a monitor, and I was just thinking, like, that's such a good idea, because then you can put the computer away from you, and it doesn't make, because a lot of times I can, like, hear fan noise. And so, I don't know, I was just thinking a Mac Mini would be a nice idea as a permanent setup. Anyway, I was just, because we were talking about picking up a new computer. But that does chain me to the desk a little bit more.
Yeah, well,
So-
I'm serious about that, because you're going to need a new machine.
Yeah,
in the
it's
next
it's
year,
coming up.
probably.
Yeah.
So
The trackpad is essentially, it doesn't click anymore, so I can still use it as a trackpad, but I can't like click and drag with it. What I did is I set up a shortcut for a three fingers is click and drag, but that's kind of a pain in the ass. But I can get by with it. But yeah, it's kind of that's not doing so hot.
yeah, we should do that. And man, you could get like last year's model, whatever you want, for a month Patreon payment, which is totally worth it, because I need you to have a good computer. You know, I need you to be able to. Yeah.
No, so I mean, I just want to. I don't need a new computer. I don't need to spend that much money on it, but I do.
Yeah, that's why I say buy last year's model, or you know, whatever you like, and you I feel like a brand new MacBook is somewhere around $1,300. So last year's is, I don't know, 1,000. I'm not sure.
But yeah, 2015 MacBook, before they took off all the ports and went over to USB-C and changed the keyboard to be crappy. That's the computer that I really want. And those are available for, depending on specs, definitely under 1,000. Probably closer to 5. Around 750. Anyway, not important. But at some point, I'll want to pull something down like that, like a used. That's really the computer I'm thinking of.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?